Okay. Hi there. Everybody ready? Yeah, we're talking about that. We have such a big crowd today. Hi there. Welcome to the January 19th, 2017 Downtown Design Review Committee meeting. Please silence your phones. We have roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner.
Present.
Charles Ainsworth.
Present.
Corey Bates.
Present.
Nathaniel Harding.
Present.
Connie Scothorn. And Danielle Theriot. You have a quorum.
Great. I hope everybody has read the minutes. Do we have a motion and a second on the minutes, please?
Move to approve.
Okay. That was Harding and Ainsworth, all in favor. Anybody opposed?
Now the rest of them, of course.
Yeah, we'll give well, actually, Connie's got some words to say, which I will enter into the minutes. We have no cases withdrawn, no continuance request, and nothing on the consent docket. The cases for individual consideration are A, 500 Northwest 6th Street. Do we have an applicant present?
Yes.
Laura, do you want to give us your 2 cents?
A couple of months ago, this was before you, and you approved the building, but you did not approve the retaining wall or the landscaping. And the applicant was asked to design a more commercial retaining wall. The committee members felt that what was being proposed was more residential in appearance. And so they have redesigned the retaining wall and the landscaping based on comments that you all now have at your place from Connie, who is sick today and isn't here. I made a phone call and asked if they could bring samples of both the material for the building and the retaining wall. They have it for the building. He has pictures of the retaining wall. He wasn't able to get an actual sample.
So what was in was this the old one?
No. What was in your packet was the new one.
Okay,
Connie was wanting to physically see a sample
I see.
and compare it to the building to see how that works together. So we summarized basically the comments I just said about what your direction to them were on the redesign. They did accommodate traffic as far as the area around the light, so that's not an issue. They're included in your packet is a reference to the fact that the sidewalk is not going to be left, it's going to be replaced. And so we included the reference to what the DDF is looking for and what they're proposing to design, which is it's a little less than what the DDF says. Although it doesn't change what you saw before, we felt we needed to point that out, so that's part of the approval. And then we referenced the change that they did in the landscaping and the retaining wall. They included justification for the street trees aren't actually out on the street. They've incorporated some of the trees into their landscaping, so it's next to the building, which is 6 to 13 foot away from the street, excuse me. And we included their justification in that. So we provided you with the information for consideration of their change in the landscaping and the retaining wall.
And I'll just add on the retaining wall, we couldn't remember, we didn't understand from the last meeting if the committee's concern about the aesthetic was about the form of it or about the actual material or the texture of the material. So obviously the applicant has redesigned the form of the retaining wall to be more rectilinear, and it's graphically represented on the rendering now where it wasn't previously, so that is helpful. In the rendering, it is shown to match the building, but the cut sheet doesn't exactly match, and I understand there are probably some other choices there, but that is where we need more feedback from the committee.
Okay. Do you want to say?
You ready for me?
Did you make any big changes to this?
Yeah, the big changes are the linear pieces. We took kind of some of the advice of Mr. Ainsworth, I guess, that suggested that we look at it like a pedestal, essentially a pedestal on this corner. And that's where kind of all the terracing and all that kind of pedestals up to this corner and kind of addresses that corner. The kind of the rectilinear fashion with which we chose to go, that's what we believe was the major issue and the major, outside of what was described as a residential type of a look was the form. Because if you guys remember, it was curved. Essentially, it was a little softer. And so we've basically taken a cue from the building and made it a little more like the building from that, just as a pedestal to the corner. So.
Okay, I always do this to you, and you're not going to be happy about it, I don't think. But do you have the other rendering, Paula?
I've got the file.
Okay.
I don't,
Can we just pass that around real quickly to remind? I mean, I think that this looks great, personally. And I am going to read what. Thank you.
And let me also.
Part was the material, we thought the material looked a little residential.
Right.
Right, and which
Okay.
we've chosen, we've gone with the Keystone, which is a large commercial, 80 pound, they're per unit, it's an 80, they're
Is that
80
it?
pounds.
I think you just passed it.
It's a very substantial unit, so it's clearly commercial from that standpoint. There really aren't a lot of options from a true retaining wall standpoint that will give us a very smooth look. This is about the smoothest I can get, and so that was also a consideration. Now, we'll stay in the same color ranges and those kinds of things, so it'll look a lot like what we're talking here. She is correct when she stated that the actual texture of a retaining wall is not the same, because it's essentially a split face.
Right.
Okay, so it's going to be rougher. But I think as we come away from the building there, that's some of the organic fashion of what happens. So I don't think that really is, for me, as much of a hang-up on why that wouldn't go with the building, as long as we stay within the color ranges of what the exterior selection, color selection. It's essentially a limestone look. So it's nice and flat. But the intention is for it to look like limestone, essentially.
Okay. I'm going to read real quickly Connie's comments in order to place them in the record. She says, I am not a fan of the segmented retaining wall blocks. I think that they would match the cast stone and would actually, I don't think that they would match the cast stone and would actually detract from the building aesthetic, since it will be a prominent feature on the east. I would really be happy if they would use cast stone, but I would accept cast-in-place concrete. Maybe with cast stone cap, they will need to protect the low walls from skateboarders. I also have some concerns about the many terraces that are shown. If the terraces were removed, it would allow for the sidewalks to be wider, which I think should happen. I would also allow the plant materials to be bigger, and that would be a good thing, especially at the parking lot. Somehow I see a car backing out of the space and driving off the wall. That would only be me that would do that. That's me I'm talking about. If there is something tall growing at the parking lot, it would screen the cars from Walker and let the parked car know that they shouldn't go there. Probably need some bollards too. I think the linear pavers are kind of weird. If they have the money for that, they should put it in a better retaining wall. The street tree thing doesn't bother me. So my response is I like the terraces. I would appreciate, this is me speaking, not Connie. I appreciate wider sidewalks. And just a question to staff. We have had people further out of the downtown, the downtown proper, emulate the 180, landscape. That's not a requirement. Is it a suggestion even?
It's, we have had various property owners do that. It's not a requirement. It's not even a guideline. In terms of matching the materials, what the downtown development framework captures is providing this buffer / amenity zone between the sidewalk and the street as a place, not just to buffer pedestrians from the traffic, but as a place to put all the light poles and the benches and the trash cans, whatever else needs to go in so that it is organized and not in the way of the pedestrian path. But in terms of matching the exact Project 180 stone, that's not a requirement.
So in this case, it's difficult to do that and get the building up to the front of the property because of the extreme grades. Would that be?
Yeah, that is the applicant's argument. We don't, there is no, if you are developing a piece of property that already has existing sidewalks, there is nothing that compels you to replace and redo those sidewalks into the new pattern. But if you are replacing them, then you should meet the guideline. And Walker specifically, we've had this conversation with so many applicants. Walker is designated as a really high-intensity street, but there are grade change issues and existing building frontage issues all up and down Walker. And it has been challenging for applicants, and we ask any additional distance you can get, any buffer you can get. Again, the buffer isn't just about between pedestrians and cars. It's like once people start putting the no parking signs and the parking meter and the benches, it starts to impede the pedestrian way. And that, some of you are nodding your heads. You've been there, done that, where you've run into these things. So that is kind of a safety issue.
At the smallest point on the east side, we're 6'3".
Staff has a question about that. The 6'3" dimension appears to be in this area because of how that's set
correct.
over, but it gets narrower here. So that is why in the staff report...
But the street is also coming away from it, so that is the narrowest point. I dimensioned it. I checked it, and
Okay.
I went to the smallest points.
Okay. And I think up at
6'2" on the other side.
6'2" along 6th Street.
At its narrowest point.
In the previous design, when the retaining walls were curved, it looked like there was a larger distance between the sidewalk and the walls.
No.
Are the new walls any further out?
The only place, and I say no. Let me recount that. There would have been a place that, when we relieved in the inside of the curve, that would have given more relief, which was also why we chose to go that direction at that point. And my client actually liked it quite a bit and argued with me when I went back to show them, hey, we need to do this. And I think that and I left this meeting thinking, okay, you know what? I think that the comments that you guys gave were constructive and certainly helped us get to what I believe to be a better solution here. I think that this does do the things that we're asking it to do from a design standpoint. We're asking it to be more like the building and kind of transition you to the street level. So I think we've achieved that. But we do give up some things. With the kind of the linear shapes of things, yes, absolutely. We give up some of that relief off of the street.
I think aesthetically it's a great improvement compared to before in having the site match and work with the building design. I'm not as so on 6th Street, that sidewalk, the way it exists right now is out at that curb line, and given the setback of the building on the site on 6th, you experience some relief on your other side as well. So I'm not terribly concerned with Sixth. The pinch point on the east side, I could see that getting tight, and certainly with the retaining wall on your other side, you get almost a canyon effect of street on one side and retaining wall on the other. So if there's any way to pull those walls in tighter to the site, I think that would be beneficial to the sidewalk experience.
It comes in an aesthetic, I think it's going to come in an aesthetic cost, because the terracing is what we're basically disguising. I mean, if you want me to remove the terracing, then we're going to have a wall, and none of you are going to like that wall. It's, you know what I'm saying? So I'm relieving the eye with the terracing. I'm relieving that aesthetic. And so I believe that there's just a small amount of give and take here. It's either we can go that direction, give you more room on the sidewalk, and remove some of that. It's going to be less cost to my owner. I mean, he'll certainly be happy about that, because cost is certainly an issue in all of this. And some of the comments that Connie's made here related to going to a cast in place. That sounds all good and well, but you're talking about at least you're talking about a couple of different disciplines as well. So this stacking this type of stone, the cost is in the material, not in the labor. The labor is very cheap to stack this kind of stone, and it's very adequate for what this use is. So.
Is there anything planned around the parking lot as far as guardrail condition or?
There are not. Code-wise, we do meet the requirement there. That's the 18 inches of fall, 30 inches out. So we meet the requirement. However, I'm not opposed to adding a couple of bollards there just to put everybody at ease at the end of that hammerhead. We could certainly do that. I would say probably 3, 2 at either end and 1 in the middle would probably cover it.
Is there at least a curb condition?
There is, absolutely.
Created by that wall? Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's not a flat?
No, it's not just a drive-off. That's a 6-inch curb there. So.
Another
Hit
thing
a
that could help
bump
is
before
to
you-
have the curb be more, maybe an 8 or 9 inch curb instead of a 6-inch curb.
And maybe it is to the point where, my only hesitation on that is I've driven a sports car for a while, and backing out in that spot then I won't see it. If I see a bollard, I know not to hit that, but that elevated curb is just going to tear up the backside of my car, which I would not be real happy
I'm thinking a
about.
combination of both would probably
Sure,
be
no,
extremely helpful.
Yeah,
That's way up there.
We could certainly do that.
Well, I'm not advocating bollards mainly from an aesthetic standpoint.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that what's there does provide some indication it's not just a straight drop-off.
It's a complete curbed condition, but we could certainly elevate the curb. It's just the room. The space that I've got is not a lot. Now, if in that planter box, if we had a little, the landscape was a little bit taller in that area, sure. That's a good thought. And you have to, the rendering was done at the same time the landscaping was done, so it doesn't completely accurately depict the idea of what the actual landscape is. So,
well, I'm with Betsy. I really like the design. I think it's a dramatic improvement, and I really think it creates that, it really dramatically highlights the building, I think. And I don't think there's an enormous amount of pedestrian traffic there, and I don't think there ever will be, so I'm not that concerned about the width of the sidewalk. So, I like what you've done.
Do you want to make a motion or anything like that?
I just have a couple of comments. I think the materiality, I understand the cost. I still am not on board with the materials. I guess I tend to agree with Connie with it's still kind of residential looking block to me. And I don't see the relationship between that block and the building. Is there even the scale of the block, and I guess that's a good question that Connie had about the materials. Similar in scale to the cast stone, or is it, the typical
The
CMU?
cast stone is 1 by 2, so 12 by 24, and the block is going to be 8 by 18. So it's a larger linear piece as well. So I think scale, I think it's appropriate. Each block of these, this is not residential. This is not something you could use you can't use this you can use it in residential. You wouldn't want to, it's just too costly. But they're 80 pounds a piece. They're literally, this is a massive block. So I don't think they're going to play that way. I think if there is, I believe that there may be a little bit of with the surface. That would be my only give to that, would be, okay, that surface is not as smooth, obviously, as what our limestone look is going to be, but it's going to match it in color. And so I think the distance it comes away from, we're right up on the building, but I think that will allow us to kind of organically transition to the earth. I don't believe that that's much of an issue. I mean, these are very, very, this is not residential. I mean, that keeps coming up, but it's not even close to it. And Connie knows that. I mean, I'm sure she specified this material.
I guess, when I see the imagery of this block, I feel like I've seen it. It's almost like the walls you see at the barriers to freeways. And so in those cases, I feel like they're in residential zones. I guess maybe that's why my mind connects that materiality in that way. And maybe even that type of imagery is in my mind to why it feels not quite right for that corner.
Right.
And being such a prominent, and because they are, and I do really appreciate the new retaining wall layout. I think it's vastly better. It's just, the material itself, I just don't know if I'm on board with it. I am happy to hear that the color is similar, cast stone, because I do think that helps tie it in.
In looking at the material, if you look at them one block to one block, I didn't like it initially, just one block, but in a field, it really plays out pretty flat. I mean, it's a little bit deceiving in that sense, and they play out flat and linear. And now the options in these materials too are a little bit limited. I've looked for smooth stuff. I really have exhaustively looked for smooth stuff to go, okay, well, this is what we would go with, even to the point of looking at potentially just flat CMU stock, and then somehow getting color to match what we've got there. Thought that might be a way to go. Unfortunately, again, now I'm bringing in footings, I'm bringing in different trades, I'm raising the cost to my client. So those are the considerations that I have to play with, or ultimately none of it really matters unless I get the cost where my client needs to. And this originally wasn't part of. We didn't think we would have to go this direction initially. We thought we would have. We thought we could grade across this thing in a way that would make it less than, somewhere in the range of probably a 4% grade. Well, we were at 8, and really that's not a good idea. We didn't want to be at 8, so that's why it's an outgrowth of what that existing condition is, and then so it kind of set us up for this, and now we've got an additional $100,000 in the retaining wall too that now the client has to back out of what was potentially finishes inside the building.
Okay. I wonder with the sidewalk width issue, because I agree with the width as well. I personally have walked against sidewalk or retaining walls exactly like this with narrow sidewalks, and it is every time I think we shouldn't do that. It's just not. It's not. I think the framework and the guidelines actually, they're there for a reason, and in this case, I tend to really agree with them. With the traffic-pedestrian relationship, and then let alone, of course, all the clutter that gets in the sidewalk. So I tend to agree with that, but it made me think of, well, why did they end up at this place? So it kind of like, okay, well, first the sidewalks were existing, they were going to stay, so
Right.
It is what it is. Is there, and it's maybe too much to ask, but had you even sited the building a foot further to the west, would that have relieved that?
It would have not allowed me to have an entrance on the north side of the property there. I mean, you can see how tight all of that is. I am crammed on this thing. at all angles, really. And then I'm required also to be within that 10 feet, which we had to get a variance for, those kinds of things. So I'm jamming my building up on this corner. It's obviously going to make me have to react to it's forced congestion, if you ask me. What I thought about that, there are ways to cite that potentially a little bit differently, but the only space that I have really is coming back further, which would then cost me more on the coming further south. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Not really east to west. East to west, there's just not much there, guys. I don't know what else to do with it. Now, like I said, the other option, the give and the take of that is the aesthetic of the terraces. And so if that is something that you guys are interested in, we could certainly remove a couple of the terraces or something and gain you back a foot and a half.
Which is worse. I mean, I agree.
That's
I
what
don't
I'm
want to
saying.
have a 10-foot tall retaining wall. That doesn't sound nice either. So
that's why I
compromise,
chose
yes.
thinking in that vein, thinking, okay, 6'3" at its smallest point. I get it. I certainly think that that's a little bit tight. And in a perfect world, it would certainly give you more relief. This isn't that situation.
Sure.
And so I thought, okay, we'll go full aesthetic. We'll give them something nice to look at as they walk by.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to pile on to that and just say, the sidewalk width bothers me, and you certainly could the building could be moved south. And when it comes to the east-west orientation, I guess I'm not understanding, couldn't the building just be a foot narrower? There's lots of ways to give another foot or two, and then the texture that, I agree with Connie's comments, just the kind of residential feel. It just seems like it'd be a much better fit if that same material were continued through. And I understand the transition sentiment, but at the same time, I just don't feel, most buildings that I can think of, they don't really have, that transition's not really part of it. You have an urban structure, it has an urban feel, it comes out of the earth, it comes out of the pavement that way. There's not really, so I'm not seeing that side of it. And I'd rather just see that same material continued through. The terracing's fine, I think that's a good way to do it, but I would like to see more sidewalk width, on those two sides, and the same material continued through. So just want to kind of reiterate, that's where I'm falling on this issue.
The flatness of it is in the material, the texture of that material, and that being different. Again, I could go and say, this is good, or I can make an argument either way. What I can tell you is that comes at a cost to my owner, again, and a lot of this, this is a $5.7 million job that's recently bid, so, and we're trying to be at this point, so I go back to them and add some cost to it, I don't know where that takes us, but. And I don't know that's not necessarily your full consideration, but it's certainly mine. So I have an obligation to make sure that my owner can get in, for the
You know
dollar.
what, I'm going to make a motion. I like the modulation. I hear my colleagues' comments here, but I really think you've made a big improvement. I think you've got a really difficult site to work with, and I think that you've designed a beautiful building here. So I'm going to recommend this be approved on the basis project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we've got 2 nays. That would be Danielle and Nathaniel. What's your name? Okay. All right. Your project has been approved.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys, for all your comments. Even, I get it. Don't. It doesn't offend me that everybody has opinions. We all have them, for sure. We're all, and just please understand that I'm working within the parameters that I've been provided as well, trying to provide the best possible project that we can, that these guys can build. And, in the end, I think we've got a great building for this area, and we're excited about it. My owners are really, really excited about it, and so I hope you echo our enthusiasm as we move forward to construction.
Cool. Thank you very much. Next item is 820 Northwest 5th Street. Is the applicant present? There you are.
Yes. This is a project that has gone through the Arts Commission, as the staff report referenced, and they did recommend approval of, the memorial. What I found interesting about this project was it's a piece of stone that came out of the bombing that they had laying around, and they really wanted to use it. We also referenced in the staff report, we're acting on this as though nothing is there. It will have a monument similar to the one you're seeing here that has the names of firefighters who have lost their lives in the line of duty. There will also be a statue of a fireman. And we have 2 landscaped areas. We referenced in the staff report that their drawing only had the one here on the left, but they also added an additional landscape area that's on the other side of the monument. We had a concern over some of the material they were proposing. One of our biggest concerns dealt with agaves. And don't get me wrong, I'm a real fan of agaves because I used to have them for about 20, 25 years until I moved to Oklahoma, and then they died. And one of our concerns is the hardiness of them in this environment. The fact that there was a better time of year to plant them, so they kind of had a hard way to go to start with, as well as they will get big. They potentially can get very tall, very wide, and where they have them planted are right next to the sidewalk, and they have the thorns on the end, and they have like the saw teeth down each leaf, so to speak, and so they're not necessarily people-friendly, and what we're designing here is a people-friendly monument. People come up, we want them to experience it, and so we were concerned about that and pointed it out. Most of the landscaping is not specifically referenced in the recommended material, but different varieties are, and so that kind of, I rely on our landscape people to assist us with that. And Connie did make comments that you have been given a copy of, and I also provided a copy of that to the applicant. And staff is recommending approval with a condition that the applicant submit a revised landscape plan to staff to resolve some of those issues, if you all agree that there might be some better plants utilized in this area. There is irrigation that has been put in. And
Very cool. So can you tell us a little bit about your project? It seems like it has a story.
Sure, it does. I'm Brian Stanland. I'm Battalion Chief of Sports Services, 26 years with Oklahoma City Fire. The actual monument that you see, the large pedestal that's standing up, is a piece of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. It's not in that photo there, in that photo there. We've had that for a number of years. But you see where the kind of blaze orange tree is? It was back there kind of behind some plants and just didn't have a prominent place. So this area where we've redesigned and have done the construction was just simply grass with nothing really there, nothing really aesthetically pleasing. And so that was what we wanted to do, is we wanted to give that monument a prominent place. And it already has the names of our fallen firefighters, those who've died in the line of duty since our inception in 1889. The firefighter that you see there, we are privately raising funds. The Board of Chief Officers is raising funds for that. And we commissioned Shala Reynolds, who is a prominent artist here in the city and has done a lot of work, firefighter work. Her husband is a retired Oklahoma City Battalion Chief as well. And the firefighter he's in his full gear. He'll have his helmet off under his arm, and he's reaching out, paying homage to those that have died in the line of duty. So it's a very emotional piece for us. You also notice we've got the 3 flagpoles. We'll have the U.S., Oklahoma, and a firefighter flag. There is going to be LED lighting on the flags and part of the landscaping as well. And I certainly understand and appreciate the concerns about the agave plant. We reached out to other city departments to make this a reality. We initially started with an estimate through Public Works with our they had an architect give us an estimate, and it was several $100,000. Actually, just under that, about $150,000 to $200,000 for the project, if memory serves correctly. And we didn't feel like we had the budget for that. So we reached out to another City Department, General Services, they have taken this on, and it's truly a labor of love. It's an incredible partnership we have with them. The big pedestal that you see, they actually designed a form and built a form from scratch that when you see it, it looks like a carnival ride or something. It's truly amazing. And so they were able to, that is actually poured in place concrete. It looks like granite when you look at it in person. They spent hours and hours polishing the top of all those surfaces to bring the aggregate to the top. So it's really, truly a beautiful piece of work. And then the monument again, or the statue again, is being constructed by Shawla Reynolds. That's where we are right now. That piece, like I mentioned, they lifted that with a crane off of its back pedestal and placed it there. It's glued in, as well as it's inset into the pedestal itself. They designed that in the design. And the two little white cups that you see, so to speak, that's where the firefighters' feet will be anchored into the piece there. And it is sprinkled. We've had a sprinkler system there for years, but it wasn't operational. So building management also did some work and brought that up to par. So everything will have a sprinkler. It'll be sprinkled as well.
And I have to ask this question because I've learned about this. Did this have to go before the Oklahoma City Arts Commission?
We
Yes,
did.
and the Arts Commission has recommended approval.
Okay, great.
We realized, too, I'll just ask for forgiveness now, we realized we got ahead of ourselves on this and didn't realize we needed to go through these commissions, so my apologies for that. So we realize we've already constructed it, basically.
One of the things he did clarify, I think Connie referenced a sweet gum tree.
Yes.
The sweet gum tree has been removed.
Yeah, the sweet gum was further out toward the street, and it was growing kind of in a wild fashion, and it was sweet gums, I've learned this now. And this...
Oh, I know, hang on a minute. It was...
Yeah, we'll try to find a photo of where it would have been.
This picture that I included...
Right there, you can
It was
see
here?
it. That has been removed. We got help from Parks to cut that down.
It's here.
So now that is simply sodded. We're thinking in the future we may do something with that sod there, but that tree wasn't in great shape, and it was kind of growing toward the building and over the street. And also the roots were coming up where it was very difficult to mow under the sweet gum, and it drops those funny little thorny things. So we did get rid of that.
Okay. Did the Public Works look at how the stone was anchored so that it won't fall? I know you said that it's inset, but did they drill any like rebar into the base to help with the anchoring of that stone? Or
I don't know for sure. I do understand that part of the process is it's now going to engineering to be reviewed to make sure it's anchored properly. I can't remember exactly where they are with that process, though. I don't believe we drilled anything. I think that it's set fairly deep, and it has like an epoxy-style glue, if you will, holding it.
Okay.
That's basically all it had on the other. When we pulled that off, everybody was very surprised that it didn't have more holding it in place.
Yeah, Arts Commission always asks that question, and I agree with Brian that I don't know if they've already looked at it, but it's at least on someone's desk. I remember
I believe
General
that's
Services had to
correct.
proof the drawings and submit
Yes.
info.
And forgive me, I went back through and noticed that Arts Commission did approve this in December, so that's great. Any other comments from the committee?
Just one question. Is there any significance behind the agave as...
No, not really. That's just what was recommended. We partnered with Parks Department. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but
Well, and I
they designed it for us.
called and asked that question because I recognized the initials and I'm like, okay, I know who this person is.
Yeah.
Because of my personal experience with agave, I'm like, why? He said for the xeriscaping aspect of it.
Right.
That was
That's
what they
why
were
we wanted to
thinking.
do
They
that.
weren't thinking about friendliness or
No.
lack thereof of the plant, which is more, I was thinking both hardiness or not, and it's not really friendly to.
Chuck? Put your... Anything else, guys?
I think it's just a lovely project. I'm not in love with the landscaping, and I think that we might like to see a different plan, so I'm ready to make a motion. I move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section C and D of the staff report, with the condition that the applicant submit a revised landscape plan to staff for review and approval.
That was a Gigi and Nathaniel motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Your project has been approved, and you just need to resubmit your landscaping to Laura when you get it fixed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We'll enjoy seeing that built. The next item is 10 Southwest 4th Street. Is the applicant present?
Yes, they are. I'm excited to have this before you because the original hotel was one of my first big projects when I started working here almost 2 years ago. A couple of you were not on, maybe 3 of you might not have been on at that point, so this is a totally new project to you. You might recall that we had a hotel that was previously that came in, and the site was only went to the alley, and it was wider. So it was a much more constricted site. It was the same applicant. Since the approval of that project, the convention center site has been locked in, and property is being acquired as part of the convention center project. Broadway is going to be relocated starting at 4th Street. It's going to be moving 1/2 block to the east, and will cut through this block. Because of that, they really had to change the hotel that had been approved. And so there's actually kind of a land swap going on, which is why you had 2 applications in the packet, because the city currently still owns the northern half of this site, but they're already into an agreement about swapping some land because they needed some land down here from this applicant. So in the staff report, let me flip to, we referenced several things. One is a variance is required for this site, and that is because they have literally an entire block, because they're going to have streets on all 4 sides, and our ordinance requires that the building has to be no more than 10 foot from the street right-of-way. So if you think about that, that requirement would make them have a building that's literally the size of the block. Well, for a hotel, obviously, they want to provide some on-site parking. They reference in their statement that they will have provisions for off-site parking as well. But if they, for their current design, they wanted the ability to have some surface parking to start with. They also are allowing themselves the possibility of having another building pad, to have a building and or structured parking at some point in the future when everything has been done in this area. Because this is obviously we're seeing park construction. We're going to start seeing the rails go down soon for the streetcar project. They're working on the streetcar facility, maintenance facility in that area as well. We had the presentation just a few months ago on the convention center, so all of this stuff is happening. But it's not there yet. So obviously, in a few years from now, there's going to be a different dynamic in that area, which then hopefully will lend this property owner to be able to continue his investment in that area. So they're going to need a variance from that setback requirement, and they've actually already filed for that. And if I'm not mistaken, that's this afternoon. Yes, because the Board of Adjustment meeting happens to be this afternoon. So one of your actions today is a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment. The design of the building is, in my opinion, it's very different from the original approval, and I really like what they've done to change it. The material's different. The layout of it's different. I think it's more welcoming building. I know that Connie had comments about it, and she had concerns for what she felt was a more suburban appearance of the building. I think that I have the original file, if anybody wants to see what that building looked like. The renderings that you have are, let me get to this one. This. Show that they're putting it on the corner there at Shields. Their signs are located so that you'll be able to see them from different direction. They had that in the original approval for this. They have entrances that will be welcoming to walking pedestrians. If people are here for something going on at the convention center. And other than that, staff recommended approval subject to the conditions that they obtain a variance for the maximum setback. They also need to, there's an alley that runs through the middle, and when this project was originally approved, there was discussion because they had thought that it had already been vacated. The city has no documentation on that, so they'll either have to get that documentation from district court or go through that vacation process, since their layout is going across the alley that's in the middle of that block. So we have those two conditions, and that's one motion, and then the second motion would be your recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for the setback.
Okay, so it seems like we really need to know a little bit more about what's going on in the area, because, where's Broadway going? Can you show us any kind of drawings that show where the convention center and the convention center hotel?
Using this one, the Convention Center Hotel reservation site is this block here, which is between Robinson and current Broadway.
So that block gets bigger, is that what we're saying?
Broadway here at 4th is being relocated half a block to the east, and then will go south. And I don't know if it ends up going south all the way to 7th Street. I think it does. And then that's where it then jags back over.
So the park is on the other side of
Robinson.
Robinson.
The park is here.
And what this basically does is kind of complete that street wall on 4th Street? Is that kind of what?
Yeah, because this is the site they have reserved for the Convention Center Hotel. I guess that's how they're referring to it.
Right. Okay. That makes more
Does that
sense
help?
to me. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have included that one drawing that I have in the past where I've marked everything up for that whole area, and I didn't even think
well,
about
it's just that it is better that it's got building on Shields instead of parking lot, but it depended on what Broadway was, and it seems like Broadway's going to be kind of a back street.
Yes, because
Do we know yet how the Convention Center Hotel is addressing Broadway?
not yet.
Okay.
And I remember you made that comment when they did their presentation, so we haven't gotten anything more since.
Okay, so I'm not trying to, push any agenda forward, but it does seem like the convention hotel would need to push up to Robinson. Robinson then becomes the really important street.
Yeah, the convention hotel is going to take up the whole block.
So
Robinson.
And
I would expect the emphasis of the hotel to be on Robinson, given the emphasis of the convention center being on Robinson.
right.
Yeah, because you won't be able to see the convention center from the boulevard. Like the convention hotel is going to be the beacon of here's where it's all happening.
Robinson and the boulevard,
Yeah.
that corner.
so this is, I think it's a good solution for that perspective. I'd like to hear everybody else's, I just wanted to understand it better, but Lori?
I agree. And while at first, it's not an ideal solution as far as developing a whole block with regard to how we and the guidelines and the framework want to see development just at a general level. But looking at this deeper, looking at how the shift in Broadway constricts the site, and then the kind of character that I assume Broadway will be is more of a back street. I do appreciate how this building is laid out on the site, addressing the corner of 4th and Shields, and then allowing for the opportunity of another development at 5th and Shields to continue that presence on Shields and then across 5th, allowing then the potentially access to this site and some small amount of parking to be off of Broadway. So while it's not, fully developed as we would want to see that, I think what's being proposed does allow for that future development to happen at some point. And I understand the chicken and the egg of parking in this area. There's nothing down there right now. So I feel like to push for a development that doesn't provide the parking it needs day one would be a little short-sighted, and rely more on the potential development of this whole area. If there's structured parking that comes down the road, then this surface parking could be developed.
Paul, how this has more rooms than your original solution?
I think we were at around 105 last time around. I think we're at 133 on this one.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out because the site expanded, they were able to beef up the number of rooms.
With regard to the siting, we were told, obviously the hotel being developed to the west, that the DDRC didn't really want any face of this building to be perceived as the back of the building, or like across the street. I think we were told, from everything we were told, that would kind of be a shipping, receiving area, kind of the back of the convention center. We did try and address that, really the main entry to the hotel. This is really for pedestrian access to the northwest, but the main entry is in the back, the porte cochere. So there's a really nice appearance of the building back there as well. We didn't treat that as kind of the back of the building. It's really, we wanted that to look as nice as this side. And regardless of what happens across the street, at least you'll have that element. We didn't want it to feel like a back of a building.
I like it. I think it's a good, way to kick off this development here, and it's going to interface well, I believe, with the convention center and the hotel. So I would recommend approval of this. Let me see. Approval application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines.
Can I stop you?
Yeah, can we stop for a second, because we need to go over materials as well. Go ahead,
Okay.
Corey.
Yeah, well, so
Sorry.
my next comment would be focused actually on the dumpster location on the site, and with as much emphasis as there is at the intersection of 4th and Shields and the main entry of the building, and understanding that corner as an important aspect of this site, I would hold the same weight at 5th and Shields. And so placing the dumpster there does not seem like an ideal location.
We agree wholeheartedly, and really all the brand requires, or Marriott requires, is that they just put a 8-foot-high, CMU enclosure around that. What we really did, and I think we've got some elevations to show, we really treated that more like a design element on that corner, so that dumpster enclosure actually on the other side of it facing that corner is signage to the front, to that corner. So the back side of that is the dumpster. It's the same material as the building. We wanted that to really become a design element to hide the fact that there was a dumpster there. Now, of course, when you're in the parking lot from the other side, you'll see it's a dumpster. But we did certainly try and address that, and we can continue to look at that to make sure that that does not appear like a dumpster from that very important corner.
Maybe, what's the fence? Like, I haven't been able to find anything, the fence that's going to go around that parking lot.
The fence is, a lot of this is based on kind of Marriott standards. That can certainly be addressed as we move along. That will be included in the landscaping plans. The owner has a separate consultant for that, so they will be submitting for that under a separate application. But
In the write-up, they indicate that the required parking lot screening shall be accomplished by 3-foot-high decorative pre-finished metal fencing, and that was, bear with me, figure out which sheet that is, and I will flip to it. It's actually in, which page is that? It's,
I think she's looking through that.
yeah, I'm looking for it so I can flip to that for you. There's the dumpster and classic pick, okay, so it's, let me get to, okay, that one is the dumpster and it's this one, so let me make that bigger for you. It's kind of back in all those pages.
Okay, whoever gets it first.
Right
gets a
there.
dollar.
That's the,
You found it? Oh, ding, 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 ding.
it's, and they show samples which are more, like you can see them on balconies, and they have circled the one that they're proposing.
Can you blow that up, please?
Up, yes. I can pull it up.
So most like that top left photo?
That, it doesn't have the rail.
The double rail.
It doesn't have the double rail. So it
Like
has a
that.
single, like this one,
And it's 3 feet tall.
yes, which is what's required.
And that occurs on the west, the south, and the east property line, pretty much, close to it.
Yes,
Yes.
it's required to be around the, let me get this bigger. Because they have a parking lot screening, you can see the notation and you can see the round, so it's across the west side, as you can see, it's across the south side and goes down to the dumpster enclosure, and then it picks up here along the east side.
The requirement is to screen parking? That's why we have the fence in the first place?
They're
Or is that an
required to
area?
either have a barrier with, if parking is adjacent to the right-of-way, the requirement is that they have either the 3-foot-high fencing, or they can do, I believe it's a 2-foot-wide landscaped area. And it does, it's, those are the two choices, and they can, and so they chose to do this.
And the fencing, sorry, it's probably in the packet. Does it have site-proof or spacing requirement?
No, it does not have a site-proof requirement. It's for a barrier. It's to make a distinction. It's not required to be
It's not
site-
required to visually
No.
screen. I see. Yeah, I always prefer, to visually screen the parking. I don't, maybe the guideline could be explained more. I don't understand necessarily as much what the fence.
I think screen is probably
it
not
was
the
in
right
place when I
word.
came.
It's really a barrier, as Laura was pointing out. And we're really kind of viewing this as a temporary solution for parking. I don't see this parking, once this area starts getting really developed, I don't see this remaining. It'll either become structured parking or probably another hotel or retail building. So, and as far as how long it's going to take for that to happen, I don't know, but I really kind of see this as more temporary.
I think just a couple questions about materials. It looks like, I think I figured this out, the elevations call out for stucco tile or similar, but by the materials packet, you've chosen tile.
Yes.
Okay, all
Yes.
tile. So the only materials we have are tile, metal panel, and a cultured stone,
And
and then the
glass.
soffit.
Yeah, and
Wow.
glass.
We did have a comment, I don't know if we want to read this from Connie.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is from, so not my comment, Connie Scothorn's comment, but she says, I would like to hear what the architects have to say about this. I'm not a fan of cultured stone, especially downtown. It's a pretty nice site to be building a suburban-looking hotel. I'm not a fan. So I wonder, and I guess that the cultured stone isn't there's not that much of it, but I wonder, is there just a potential to use a different material than the cultured stone?
I think there certainly is, and I did receive Connie's comment prior to this meeting. There is a very limited amount, and the amount that we're showing is really kind of what I guess Marriott sees as kind of their iconic, facade for the main entry in that port cochere. They're calling that one of their iconic pieces. That this is this Marriott Fairfield Inn and Suites. I don't think they would have an objection to us looking at using an alternate material there, either metal panel or a different color tile or something. They do want it. They do want that piece distinct in the front as well in the back, but I don't really see that being an issue with them. I think we can probably get them.
I think that'd
to
be
look at
great.
something.
I agree with Connie. I'm not a fan of the cultured stone either. So if it seems something that is maybe not easily addressed, I think that'd be great.
I agree. I agree. And from Marriott's perspective, they're going to look at this as they don't want this necessarily to compete with their higher-end product. They want this to really look like their prototype Fairfield Inn and Suites, which it doesn't. I don't know if you have that, their proto with all the drive-it, which we really don't like at all. So again, just kind of maintaining those iconic pieces, but again, I don't think they're going to have an issue with it.
And Danielle, I wanted because I was going to read what the ordinance requirement is, because I thought about that fencing, where a parking lot abuts a street frontage, in order to create a clear separation between the sidewalk and the parking lot. Either a decorative 3-foot-high wall or fence constructed of approved building materials or 2-foot wide irrigated landscape area shall be installed and maintained so as not to encroach upon the public rights. So it doesn't require the screening. It just is for a separation.
And did the staff report say that this screen meets that?
It does.
Okay.
I just want to reiterate that I agree about the cultured stone. I just don't see that as a material that we want to see in this important location in downtown.
Sure, certainly.
So an alternative would be appreciated.
You bet.
So what I'm seeing on your elevations are, you've got aluminum storefront, you've got stucco tile, and it looks like the black is a tile, then metal canopy. On your north elevation, I know this has got to either be something weird's going on, but it looks like you have storefront, but it says cultured stone canopy supports pointing right at the storefront. Is that right?
Oh, this one right here?
Yeah. Is that, that's a storefront, right?
Yeah, that's storefront. That's aluminum storefront. That's just a misnote.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't
No,
have like a solid wall of cultured stone.
Absolutely.
there
That's
that
all
was-
aluminum storefront, yes.
Okay.
Just to be 100% certain, there's no stucco on this project.
No,
Or EFS.
Or EFS.
there's definitely no EFS. The reason why we put stucco and tile there, because we were still looking at options for the varying colors. I think the reason why I said we're good with tile is because I'm pretty sure that we can find a tile in that color. We just want to make sure that there's a good contrast there, and it actually won't necessarily be modeled like that. I mean, it's kind of shown modeled. You'll perceive that it's different, but as far as stucco, I think we are allowed to use that.
There is stucco, and I call that out in my staff report, because I took that from their, if I'm not mistaken, their design statement.
Okay, if there
And
is,
as
it's
well
not
as-
clear to me where it is exactly. All the dark material I assume to be tile.
The lighter would be, if we did do stucco, the lighter would be the stucco. And we're really at a pretty early design stage. When we start looking at cost, that's always a consideration. Stucco versus tile, if we can, save the owner a little bit of cost using stucco and it looks remarkably similar, that's something we would want to consider.
Okay.
On the elevations, just to show you, because I wanted to find where it actually says it. Throw that up. The arrow right here, stucco tile or similar field tip.
For that lighter color.
Oh, so it's stucco tile, not stucco.
For the lighter color.
So
Yeah.
that's something that you'll bring back when you decide what your final material is and bring it to Laura,
Certainly.
probably?
Certainly.
That's something we can do administratively, right?
About what page?
How many
Says it's
pages?
a large format exterior wall tire light.
Okay, let me get there.
You see that? Danielle, where is it?
Yes, that's the tile that we're considering using. Yeah, for the light color.
Okay, well, I understand. Sounds like maybe we're still considering materials. We don't have a decision on materials yet, so we may need to still see what's being decided.
Paul, okay, your choices for this beige area, you were at some point suggesting it would be stucco or tile.
Correct.
Or something similar.
Correct.
Right now, today, I think it'd be helpful for the committee to approve something, and if it changes later, we can change.
Sure, and I guess it would.
Stucco is allowed.
Yeah, I guess that's my point is, from what I understand and from what I've read, that stucco is allowed. Where, again, I go back to we're still working through, costs and things like that. We're at a really pretty early design stage, so we haven't gotten into a lot of costs. So what I'm saying is it's going to be stucco or tile depending on cost, depending on
I'm saying right now, today, what do you want them to consider approving? Or both? Do you want them to approve either or just one, and then come back and change it?
I would like, if stucco is going to be an issue in the future, I would want it to be approved with stucco.
Stucco's allowed.
Yeah.
Well, to a certain percentage.
No.
Do we know?
Ethos is allowed to a certain percentage. Stucco is plain allowed.
And I would like to interject that stucco is not ethos. I know ethos does or drive it. We don't like it either. They've got it to a point to where it'll look like stone. That's not stucco, but that's limestone most likely, but that's what the new stucco products, they really do a good job with making them look like other materials. So honestly, I would doubt that a very small percentage of people would actually recognize the difference between a tile and a stucco that was kind of finished similarly.
So to get back to what Danielle, this is the page that you had pulled out, and that goes hand in hand with this picture for the large format tile.
Okay. Can we approve the large format tile? The thing I like about the large format tile over a stucco product is that it has more character, it has more scale.
We agree. It's a great urban product to use, so we really like it. And if we can, I will tell you, if we can, we would like to use tile.
Okay, one last question.
And if we can't, then we would use stucco that looked very much like tile.
One question. A landscape packet is yet to come to us, is that correct?
That is correct. That landscaping is not part, and we referenced that. It will come back at a later time. Most of the time, landscaping, they just deal with staff. However, if you all, wasn't even on the table. We didn't even advertise the landscape.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in section C and D of the staff report, with the conditions that A, the applicant receives a variance from the Board of Adjustment for the maximum setback requirements, B, the applicant vacate the alley, C, the cultured stone be replaced with another material submitted to staff for approval, and D, the light field area, as shown in the elevations, be large format tile as submitted in the material packet.
Good job. That was Bates and Faulkner. All in favor? Any opposed?
I'll also move to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for variance from the maximum setback requirements.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That was Bates and Terrio. Anyway,
Thank you.
You are approved. Thank you very much for dealing with us and coming back, and I think it's going to be a great project. You guys are really fortunate to have that site.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay. We have a whole bunch of administrative approvals. Any highlights? No? Lot of construction? Okay. Anything that we should be aware of that we would normally think that we should approve?
Of course not. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on the AA report.
Okay. Any comments from the planning staff? We have what? What?
Previously, we did the film room mural and the fence and landscaping and foodies. And then we have
Okay. Okay, cool. Any comments from the committee members? Are we missing somebody? I think we've got...
Connie's sick. You guys are full of committee members.
Hi, Connie, if you're listening to us.
If you're watching.
Anyway, I hope everybody had nice holidays and you're having a wonderful cold January. And we are meeting next on February 16th. Applications came in yesterday. No, day before yesterday. So, anyway, we're adjourned.